Hey everyone!
Happy holidays!
Long time no see.
It's been a minute.
We just want to preface this by saying this might not be the most fun and lighthearted video we've ever posted, but the past few months have been pretty tough.
But we're coming out on the other side of it.
We just want to update you all and let you know what's up. 2 months ago, I had to have a 9-hour-long emergency cancer surgery called an RPLND. It was an invasive surgery where the doctors made 6 incisions on my lower abdomen in order to remove 30 lymph nodes. I was told that there was a 50-50 chance that my cancer would come back. It's been a long journey, and this is what happened. So, as many of you know, I was diagnosed with testicular cancer in 2020, and I had a surgery, went through chemo through the beginning of 2021, and for the past year and a half, I've been going through checkups every few months to look at my blood work and get CT scans to just monitor the situation. Everything seemed to be great, we were cruising, everything was looking good.
We thought we were out of the woods. You had like a year and a half of the check-ins and stuff?
Yeah.
And everything had been going great.
We had kind of officially moved on to that next chapter in our lives, and
it started to feel like a bad dream.
Yes, but then we experienced the plot twist of the century. In early September, maybe like a week after my birthday and a week after our engagement, I had just gotten off the plane with Mike at JFK, and I got a phone call from my oncologist letting me know that the most recent CT scan was a little concerning. So I don't want to bore anybody with all these medical details, and I'm not a doctor, but based on my personal experience with testicular cancer, it spreads in a very predictable pattern. And the way that they check for any sort of sign of relapse is they look at the CT scan and analyze your lymph nodes in your abdomen. And as long as everything is the right size and looking good, then they just proceed to the next checkup a few months later. So basically there were 3 different things it could be: cancer, scar tissue, or teratoma, which is a chemo-resistant part of a tumor that they would have to remove because it can cause complications and other types of cancer down the road. Long story short, we get a call and I find out that I'm about to have one of the most invasive surgeries you could get for this type of cancer, and I just broke down in the middle of the airport. I was that girl crying at terminal whatever. And
bad weekend for us.
It was rough.
Bad weekend.
It was.
One of our best friends is literally at the curb picking us up. We just had a long travel day, and we're supposed to get in this car to go like 4 hours upstate.
To go to a wedding and talk to a bunch of people we haven't seen in a while.
Yeah, and so we had to make like a game time decision. We weighed all the options. Ultimately, I was like, it's whatever you want, but I was like, we can turn back and fly back to Toronto. There was no way we were gonna get any more information or get hold of any of the doctors until Monday. So we ultimately decided to still go because, it made sense to spend time with people who love us and be surrounded by love and support versus, going back home and twiddling our thumbs in anxiety all weekend, which we did anyway, but at least we had support around us.
So I broke down not only because I found out I was gonna have this really invasive surgery with a lot of not so fun long-term side effects. It was eerily similar to the way that things unfolded the first time around. It was a call on a Friday afternoon where you'd have to wait an entire weekend to get additional details. Same time of year, right after my birthday, right after a bunch of really fun stuff.
And what the hell, we just got engaged. We just had the highest of highs.
So rude.
And a week later, we're like, what the?
Not the engagement gift we were hoping for, but it was just really heartbreaking because we felt like we had finally moved on to this other chapter in our life. The whole cancer thing kind of felt like it was behind us. I know that you're never fully out of the woods, but like Mike said, it kind of started to feel like a bad dream or distant memory, and it just came back and hit me like a ton of bricks. It felt like we had finally made it up to the top of this staircase that we fought to climb for a year and a half, and that we just got kicked right down to the bottom. I've had surgery before. I'm a tough cookie. I know what recovery is like. It's never going to be fun. I have the best caretaker in the world, but it was the mental and emotional part that I struggled with because it's about to be a journey. Best case scenario, it was going to be a 3 to 4 month journey, but if they found cancer the next year or 2 of my life,
so starting all over.
Yeah, that is a lot to have to just sit with for months at a time. The first thing you do when you wake up in the morning is think about cancer. The last thing you think of before you go to bed is cancer, and that's a really dark and heavy place to have to live in for months at a time.
I feel like I didn't fully understand PTSD, really what that meant or how that felt. I understand it conceptually, but I feel like I didn't really understand it till that weekend / the past 3-4 months or whatever it's been. I'm sure we'll talk about this more later, but we've talked about how the past few months, it sounds crazy, but felt harder than the first round.
Yes.
Because of a lot of things we'll go into, but I think part of that was genuine daily PTSD. And it's like, we can't be back here, like all the unknowns. But the first time it was tough.
Yeah.
And it was scary and it was sad. But in a way, it was almost, I can't believe I'm saying this. I can hear myself in the first video bitching about it. But it almost was a little easier because we were in lockdown in Toronto. Toronto was in lockdown for 14 months.
It kind of felt like the entire world.
Everything was on pause. So like we were suffering, it was tough, but it didn't feel like we were missing out. The past few months were scarier, and we're back in our lives. We have so much going on, so much that we're supposed to be doing via travel, and just there was like, I feel like 5 extra layers this time that were just like brutal.
It was a lot. So the wait and build up towards the surgery date was pretty intense. We also had to do a lot of wedding planning, and we still had to work. We still had, life goes on despite all of this really heavy information. So fast forward to the last week of October, we finally found ourselves in Toronto for surgery. I was on a liquid diet for about 48 hours and really cranky and hungry.
But you got a good last meal.
Don't ask me why, but the lymphatic system absorbs a lot of fat. And so in order for them to see the lymph nodes as clearly as possible, they ask you to drink a giant Dairy Queen milkshake the night before surgery.
I had a blizzard. He had more restrictions.
I couldn't have nuts or any
Fun stuff.
Any fun stuff. So
I really went for it.
On the morning of surgery, we got to the hospital around 5 a.m.
I did not sleep that night.
We had to say our goodbyes.
Oh, that was so sad. Then the guy abruptly at like 5 a.m. was like, all right, say goodbye. And I was like, what? I had thought I would get to hang out with you up until they all right, here's the anesthesiologist, and they wheel you out. It was tragic.
I put on my cute little gown and my booties. They got a zillion IVs started. I didn't know you could have that many IVs at once. They wheeled me to the operating room, which was one of the coldest rooms I've ever been in. It was freezing. There were like 8 people in it, like tugging me in every direction. My way of coping with stress is to like crack jokes, and I think I'm really funny. I have a sense of humor, whatever. And I remember the surgeon was wearing this not a bonnet, but you know what I mean, like the little headband Scully thing, and it had the logo of an NFL team that was not doing very well this season. And I remember cracking a joke saying, I hope the surgery goes better than their regular season. And everyone laughed, but I was like, wow, that was dark, wow. Woo! And the next thing I know, I was asleep, lights out. The surgery was supposed to take around 3 to 4 hours.
It did not. It took 9. That was a really bad day for me. It was like one of my darkest days, I would say. I'd like to think a good caretaker.
So good.
I'm really good in a crisis. So they don't update you during the process, but they're supposed to call you once it's over. So once hour 4 goes by, I was checking my phone constantly, waiting for the call. And then another 2 hours goes by. I'm having crippling anxiety because I start thinking, your mind starts thinking about all of the things the doctor mentioned could happen, whatever. It's a giant, giant surgery. I just started spiraling. I just started calling every hour of the hour. I called 4 or 5 times. They were sick of me. And so by hour 8 or 9, I was losing my mind. It was very tough. But then we eventually got the call that he was out of surgery and in recovery. We got to make sure he wakes up and can use
the restroom.
I was with his mom at the time. It was very emotional. Anyways, I hopped in the car and went to the hospital.
So when I woke up from surgery, I remember fading in and out as they were Tokyo drifting me through the halls of the hospital. And then finally, I woke up in recovery, and there were 8 nurses tugging me in every direction. And my throat was so sore from the tube that was down my neck that I couldn't really breathe. There was an IV or tube in my neck that I had not fallen asleep with. So I was like, oh, y'all got to work when I was asleep? IVs all over the place, catheter in my urethra, which... But lo and behold, my fiance, I could see his little shoes under the curtain as he was walking into the room. I lit up. I was so excited. I was like, oh my God.
And we were actually lucky, I guess, all things considered, because visiting hours ended at 9.
Can you imagine if you had just missed me?
I would have been so upset. I was mentally preparing for it because it was very overwhelming. That started to freak me out.
Was it what you expected? Worse? Better?
A little worse. I'm good with needles, I'm good with IVs, but I didn't expect the giant one in your neck. And also you had obviously a breathing tube all day.
Yeah.
So your poor little voice, and you were just like so out of it. Like, I can only imagine what you were saying to the nurses, but they were all so sweet.
They were the sweetest nurses I have ever encountered in my life. They put up with so much, they deal with so much. They're
God.
Literally angels from heaven.
I have such newfound respect.
So
like
much
the
respect.
shit they have to see.
When I woke up, there was a brief moment where I was relieved because the surgery that I had been dreading for weeks and weeks was finally over with. And I was like, oh my God, hopefully we can just move on with this and just start the recovery and just this next phase. And you're sharing a room with people that are going through things that are like unimaginable. You hear, see, and just witness stuff that to this day has like shocked me to my core. It did kind of put things into perspective, and I was like, well, at least I know that I could probably go home in a couple of days. That might not necessarily be the case for these people. So
Remember the blood on the window? We saw a lot.
So after hanging out with my fiance for a couple of hours, he eventually had to go home because visiting hours were over. I stayed the night in the hospital, did not sleep a wink, because they wake you up every half hour to poke you with a different needle or give you more drugs. You know, basically make sure that you are still alive and breathing.
Went back the next morning. We hung out all day. There was just like one little complication. He basically had to like pee a certain amount before they could like release him. And it was not going great. It was down to the wire, and it got to be like 8 o'clock the following night. And they were like, it's on the fence, like you gotta go a little more. We can't let you.
I was like 5 minutes away from just like pouring apple juice in the container and calling it urine and just being like, okay, I'm good, let's go.
But literally down to the wire, he did it, and they released him and said we could go home, thank God.
And then a few days later, I had some fun little complications that landed me back in the ER. We ended up in the ER in downtown Toronto on the Friday night of Halloween weekend. It was wild. Long story short, lymph nodes basically help drain the lymphatic fluid and toxins throughout your body. And so when they remove 30 of them, your body has to relearn how to drain the fluid. I woke up one morning, my scrotum was the size of a grapefruit.
I can attest, I have pictures.
I low-key thought I was like dying.
It happened so quickly. Like I like got done with work, like I'm going for a quick run.
Yeah.
And then I got like an SOS text being like, something's happening.
Something happened.
Yeah, there's swelling, whatever, you know. But I could tell he was panicking, so I like sprinted all the way home. He was correct. And the craziest thing was like in the next 24 hours, it like doubled in size. It got to, I didn't know it was possible your body could do that.
You live and you learn. So we end up in the ER and they are understaffed. It is Halloween night. There is chaos going on all over the place. We basically had to wait there for 14 hours to finally see a specialist to check the situation out.
This is all in 1 week. We're so tired. I mean, he's recovering. I'm just like beyond depleted. I couldn't get past the waiting room. So I was in the waiting room from like 7 p.m. until 4 a.m. That was a traumatizing night. A guy throwing chairs at glass windows, trying to kill people. I was like texting him. I was like, I think I'm just gonna go like hide in the car in the parking garage. But then luckily,
I befriended the gay nurse.
Obviously.
And I was like, hey, no, we're not supposed to have people back here, but like, is there any way that like my partner, fiance could like maybe come back here? And he's like, we're usually not supposed to do this, but like, what's his name? I'll go get him. So
next thing I know, chairs are being thrown, people are puking, and then this little gay nurse comes out and goes, are you Mike? I was like, yes. And he's like, come on. And he was literally like the angel of that day.
literally, thank you so much.
So at 4 a.m., I get in there.
So after 14 hours of waiting, a really lovely urologist walks in and he's like, hey, I'm just gonna check some things out. You might wanna grab your partner's hand while I inspect. I was like, cool, he's gonna like poke around. No, he squeezed my scrotum as hard as he possibly could and was like, oh, just let me know what hurts. And I was like, yeah,
Keep in mind,
that hurts. He kept squeezing as if I had like personally hurt this man and his entire family. I was like, did I do something? I just had tears running down my face as I was laying there because I'm like, this is worse than the surgery. He's literally like trying to castrate me on the spot.
you guys, it was so bad. I can't even explain. I'm really good with pain, but seeing him in this pain, and you know, like, gentlemen, anything like down there, it's just like you cringe, like hearing about it, right? Holding his hand, seeing it happen in front of me and how awful and painful it looked, and seeing his face, I got queasy. It's so tough seeing you like that. That was brutal.
But I did it.
I survived.
And thankfully it went away in a day or two. I just had to sleep with my legs in the air. Elevate your legs.
That felt like rock bottom to me.
So thankfully my scrotum went back to normal size and we were just
Words
moving
you never
on.
thought you'd say.
Right? And we finally moved on with recovery. We were feeling good. I was starting to walk around and like get some exercise. And then we got the world's worst cold that lasted about 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks.
We were like flatlined for almost 3 weeks.
And let me tell you, sneezing and coughing when you have incisions all over your abdominal wall is like not an option. Finally, after 3 months of
hell,
I finally got the biopsy results for the lymph nodes they had removed, and they did not find any living cancer. It was just residual teratoma from the original tumor that they had treated with chemotherapy. And so they removed it, it was a clean cut, and they were like, everything should be good, we're gonna go back to surveillance and move on. Just keep focusing on your recovery, but we're confident that this is it. We were both really emotional about it. I hopped on a FaceTime call with my family and everyone was just so overjoyed to end the year with positive and good news, and to know that like we're not gonna have to start this next year with a whole other chapter of treatments and chemotherapy or anything crazy. Fresh start, fresh year. I know I said that last year and probably the year before, but like third time's a charm, right? I had the best caretaker anybody could ever ask for. And I'm sorry that I put you through this again.
Oh no, please, it's just so unfair.
It's been a while.
It's so unfair, but you are so strong. I can't believe how positive and resilient you are through all of this. It's really insane and beyond admirable.
I really appreciate it. And thank you. I never forget. Love you. Love you too. I feel like we learned a lot from the first time around. You get that new appreciation for life and the people around you, and it really shifts your perspective.
Yeah.
But the second time around, I'm kind of like, you know, I kind of feel like we learned this lesson the first time. Like, do we really have to do this again?
Yeah, I was like, the first one already sent me into a tailspin of like, whoa, life is truly like so short and like an existential place. And then when the second one hit, I was like, wait, I'm still processing the first.
Yeah, you're like, hold on.
This is not fair. I think this is a different new year. We're getting married and we have a lot to look forward to, and the typical vows, just repeating the whatever, like in sickness and in health, and we gotta like tie in some good joke there, or I feel like we're both just gonna like burst out like laughing, like okay. Check.
Yeah. So that is the update. It feels good to be back. We will be back with some other pretty okay videos in the near future. I'm honestly gonna take the rest of the year off and just
we're chilling.
We're gonna chill and ride this wave until January 1st, and we will be back with a lot of cool stuff that we are currently working on. Thank you so much for watching.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Have a safe and happy new year.
Safe, restful, take care of yourselves.
We'll see you in 2023.
Goodbye.
Bye.